Detroit Pistons forward Jerami Grant is injured, but that's not stopping trade rumors from heating up surrounding Jerami Grant. Should the Pistons trade Jerami Grant? Should they entertain offers? And what would I accept for Grant in a realistic trade? We'll talk about that in today's episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast.
You are Locked On Pistons, your daily Detroit Pistons podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's the deal? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast. This episode is brought to you by TrueBill. TrueBill is a new app that helps you save money by helping you identify and stop paying for the subscriptions you don't want or need. I can even negotiate better deals than the ones that you want to keep. Per usual, I am your host, Kuka Hill. You can find me over on Twitter at Kuka Hill. I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. And I just want to take a quick second and thank you guys so much. Over the last 24 hours, we've gained like over 40-something subscribers over on the YouTube channel. We are currently, as of me recording this, I believe at 921 subscribers. So we are just under 80 subscribers away from hitting our goal of 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year. It looks like that we're going to get there, but we still need a little bit of that last push. So if you haven't already, head over to the YouTube channel, hit the subscribe button. It's the best way to support the podcast. I'd really appreciate it. So again, if you haven't already, help us get in this final push to 1,000 subscribers. Head over to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons and subscribe to the channel. I'd really appreciate it. But we got some Jerami Grant news to talk about. So like I mentioned in the cold open, Jerami Grant is injured. Jerami Grant is hurt. He is dealing with a thumb injury. He's out for at least 6 weeks, it says. But that has not stopped trade rumors from circulating around Jerami Grant, and reports have come out that Jerami Grant's injury will not stop teams from being interested in him and will not stop teams from trying to trade for him. So, I know some people, and we talked about this, I believe, last week on the podcast, that once Jerami Grant got hurt, it was like, oh, well, he's not going to be traded for at least another 6 weeks, and it doesn't look like things will happen. That's just not the case, apparently, according to reports. Teams seem to be interested in him anyways and are willing to wait until he gets healthy. So we've dealt with a lot of rumors. There's a lot of stuff going on. Every fan base that has a competing team that would like to add Grant are already chucking up their trade machines. I've got sent like 10 different trade machines to my DMs over on Twitter. It's definitely trade season already in December. Usually doesn't start this early, but when your team's 4 and 22, and and your guy, one of your best players, is a hot commodity, has great value on the market, and is on a great contract, I guess those are the kind of things that start to happen. So we're going to talk about all kinds of different aspects of trading Jerami Grant on the podcast today. It's going to be a quick podcast. The first thing I want to talk about is, should the Pistons trade Jerami Grant? If you guys remember before the season, we had a podcast on here, and I talked about whether I believe the Pistons should trade Jerami Grant. And at that time, I said, no, I don't think they should. He wants to be here. He signed for all the reasons off the court. We've talked about many, many times on the podcast before. He seems to be understanding of where the Pistons are and where they're going. And the Pistons' plan all along has been for him not to be the guy, but for him to be like a third guy when they're ready to compete. They already have that puzzle piece filled in with him, just in the waiting. So I said the Pistons shouldn't be in a rush to trade him. I have changed my stance since the summer, and this is why. So there's 2 different parts to this that we're going to explain. I'm going to explain why. First of all, and this has come from talking with some people that I trust, some of the friends of the podcast, Hal Bridius, Bryce Simon, but also other people on Pistons Twitter and people I respect that cover the team. This is a question I've raised up a few times on the podcast thus far. Are we sure Jerami Grant's bought into what's going to be asked of him? When he signed with the Pistons, it was because he did not want to be the player he was in Denver anymore. He didn't want to be the player he was in OKC anymore. And that was a player who was just kind of feeding off superior players on the team, wasn't asked to do much offensively, kind of was just relegated to spot-up shooting and playing good defense, and the other team's best player, wing defender, or wing best player. He kind of had a burst out in the bubble with how he guarded LeBron James and how he played in the bubble a few years ago. Actually, it wasn't even a few years ago. It was last year, wasn't it? We've had like 2 or 3 NBA seasons in like a year and a half. It's hard to keep track. But either way, you guys know when the bubble was. So he didn't want to be that player anymore. He signed with the Pistons. He was offered the same money from Denver, but he signed with the Pistons because he wanted to be that guy. He wanted to be given that role and given that chance to be that guy. Obviously, like I said, there's other off-court reasons that contributed to it that made him, a little bit more happier to sign in Detroit. But the overall reason was because he wanted a bigger role. He wanted to be the guy. He wanted to have a chance to do all these things. And in his first season with the Detroit Pistons, he was given that. Now, do I believe that Jerami Grant understood that it was going to be a rebuild and they weren't likely to win immediately? Yes, I do agree with that. I do think he knows that he's not stupid. I'm sure he knew that. But there's one thing that people keep overlooking a little bit, I feel like, a part of this. Why that may be true, he still signed in Detroit to have like a year, 2 years, a few years of being able to have those kind of touches, have that kind of usage, and have a chance to be that guy. That's what he signed up for. And the Pistons, yes, were expected to be bad and expected to get a good pick in the draft, but they were not expected and they were not planning on getting the number one pick in the draft. And with that number one pick in the draft that they so desperately needed and luckily got in the offseason, they drafted Kay Cunningham, who is immediately the face of the franchise, immediately the guy, already surpassing players in usage, already surpassing people as the closer in for the Pistons. And now all eyes on Kay Cunningham and how to get him the ball more, how to make life easier on Kay Cunningham, how to make Kay Cunningham the face of the franchise, help him be the guy on the team, help him close the games out. All these things, everything's about Cade now. And are we sure that's something that Jerami was looking forward to getting? Now, again, like I said, I'm sure Jerami was aware that the team was not going to be good, that the team was going to struggle, and they were going to be in a rebuild. I'm sure he accepted that. He's not stupid. We all know that that was probably the case. But I don't think that a year into him wanting to be the guy, or at least test those waters and try to develop his game like that, and have those type of touches and usage, I don't think a year in he expected that to change already, or expected him to go from the guy of a team that's the team wasn't good, but he still was the guy of that team last season. I don't think he expected that to go completely away after just one season. I don't think that's what he wanted, and I also don't know. And again, I can't answer this for certain. I don't think anyone really can, but Jerami Grant, and I don't think he'd ever say this publicly. You may have to find out. This kind of thing you'd find out like 10 years after when he retires or something. But uh, another thing that I think that should be raised and a question that should be legitimately considered is, everyone's just been saying when the Pistons are ready to be a good team, when they're ready to compete, Jerami will just slide to that third piece. He'll just slide down there. He'll go back to the player he was in Denver and OKC for the Pistons. He would be great in that role. Sure. But will Jerami want to do that? The whole reason why he signed in Detroit because he didn't want to be that player anymore. That was just last year. It was a year ago that he said he didn't want to do that no more. He wanted to have more touches. He wanted to be a different player. With Kate Cunningham, that process has been accelerated. Instead of looking like 3 to 4 years down the line of trying to compete, with Kate Cunningham, now you have to accelerate that. At least push it forward at least a year, maybe even 2 years. The Pistons can't afford to continue just to lose and think Kate's going to be okay with it and just ride along with it. They don't have nothing to worry about. So that's accelerating. So now what turned out to be what was supposed to be in Jerami Grant's mind, I assume, like a 2 to 3 year stint of him trying to be the guy and take those touches and develop that game. Now it's basically been 1 year of that. And now the year after, immediately, Cade's the guy now. And who knows, maybe even next year after another top pick in the draft, Jerami, after 2 years already, is back to being a third guy and back to being put into that low usage role. Well, we're sure he's going to want to do that for a Pistons team that probably isn't going to be that good off top. I don't know. I don't know if he's going to be that. So I think those are things that the Pistons should consider. Something I've been considering, and why I think the Pistons should look to trade Jerami Grant. I don't know the answers to those things. And if I was in Jeremy's shoes, I'm putting myself in Jeremy's shoes. If I was in his shoes, and I played basketball my whole life, just being as a human, a competitive person, I probably would be mad about that. Like not like try to ruin chemistry or anything kind of mad, but like kind of just thinking to myself when I'm at home by myself, like, man, I signed here to be the guy, and already a year later, I'm already giving that up. And who knows? Now next year they're going to ask me to be possibly a third guy again. I didn't want to be that. So I think those are just fair questions. Maybe he doesn't have a problem with it, but we don't know the answer. And I think those are fair questions to bring up when considering whether the Pistons should trade or not trade Jerami Grant. When we come back, we'll dive into another reason why I believe the Pistons should consider trading Jerami Grant. Why I think this reason in particular coming up should really make the Pistons press the pedal on trading Jerami Grant this season. We'll talk about that when we come back from the ad break. But first, I got to tell you guys about one of our sponsors. First up, let me tell you a little bit about Stance. I've been hearing a lot about Stance apparel lately, especially because they've just launched a new line of active apparel. Plus, it's holiday gifting time, and Stance is the coolest gift you can give. I can't explain to you guys just how incredibly comfortable and well made their socks, shirts, joggers, and hoodies are. It's just incredibly comfortable. And Stance isn't just some boring clothing line. Stance has changed the mindset by offering color, comfort, and creativity like no other. Founded in 2009, Stance Apparel represents a radical reinvention of socks, underwear, and active apparel. With a sharp focus on comfort, quality, and creativity, Stance brings an atypical aesthetic alongside some of pop culture's hottest collaborators for the ultimate in style and self expression. Because everything you wear should be a direct extension of who you are and how you feel. They have all kinds of current collaborations, such as Wu Tang Clan, Batman, The Goonies, Star Wars, my favorite comedy show ever, The Office, Harry Potter, Disney, Marvel, Bob Marley, Major League Baseball, NBA, and Pixar. Stance believes that the perfect fit matters more than fitting in, that those who feel good do good. Go see for yourself. Register for an account at stance.com and get 15% off your first purchase. Use promo code Locked On at checkout to apply. Enjoy the color and comfort of a life less ordinary. Again, use promo code Locked On at your checkout at stance.com to get 15% off your first purchase. Enjoy the color and comfort of a life less ordinary with Stance. I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. And again, like I told you guys, the best way to support the podcast, head over to the YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button. We are just under 80 subscribers as I am recording this. Is 10 p.m. on the 14th. We're under 80 subscribers away from 1,000, our goal. We have to make this late push real quick, this last push. Help me get there. I'd really appreciate it. It's the best way to support the podcast. So again, head over to the YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button. I would really appreciate it. But yeah, Jerami Grant, trade rumors, man, heating up. We just got done talking about one reason why I believe the Pistons should start to consider trading Jerami Grant. And according to reports, they are open to trading him. And one of the reports today by Bleacher Report talked about why the Pistons, or said reportedly, the Pistons are a little bit pressed or interested in trading Jerami Grant before his contract expires or before he wants to start talking about contract extensions. They want possibly to get him out before then and capitalize on his value. And that's going to segue me into my second reason why the Detroit Pistons should seriously consider trading Jerami Grant this season before the trade deadline. So again, I just want to say this real quick. Jerami is a fine player. Jerami is a really good player. I like Jerami. If you guys followed me last season, I was one of Jerami's biggest supporters. I was very happy for how he was proving his doubters wrong because, trust me, there were plenty of them. No one thought that he was going to be able to come to Detroit and show anything. No one thought he had any kind of bag to him, thought he had any more improvements left in his game. And for what it's worth, so far in just 1 year of being with the Detroit Pistons, he has already proven all that to be wrong. Now, there's things I'm going to critique Jerami on. There's things I don't like about Jerami and his play style, but there's no way to deny that he set out on a goal to prove that he was more than the player he was in Denver and OKC, and he has achieved that goal. Now, how much more he is, that's up for debate, and I'll have that debate with other people. But there's not something that you cannot debate, and it's simply the fact that he is more than the player than he was in Denver and OKC. He can offer more than that. So I want to give him credit for that while we talk about this, and don't want people to think that this is just me not liking Jerami. But let's get to this next point. And again, like I told you guys, I think this is the biggest point to trading him before this season ends or before the trade deadline. It was actually made eloquently by our friend of the podcast, Hal Bridius, who guested on the podcast last week. He tweeted this out today. I'm going to read his tweet, but this really got me. I kind of had been thinking about this, but I didn't think about it too much. And then when I saw his tweet, it was like a light bulb went up in my head. I was like, you know what? That's actually a freaking good idea, a good point, and it completely kind of pushed my mindset into this way. And I agree with him. So let me just read the tweet real quick. He was arguing, him and another friend of the podcast, Bryce Simon, were arguing about whether or not they should trade Jerami Grant. But overall, let me just go ahead and read Albertius' tweet. He says, the problem is the contract. Right now, he's due $20 million. He can join a possible contender, mesh for half a season, and then be ready to go again next year. Next year, it's riskier trade for someone else. The year after, if he's there, he's on a near max deal. The value changes. That right there is an excellent point. And I think that is probably the biggest point for why the Pistons should look to trade Jerami Grant. So I'm going to explain it a little bit more to you guys and dive more into his point. I'm sure not a lot of you guys understand what he means and what he's talking about here. So let's dive into it. So first, if the Pistons trade Jerami Grant right now, his value, I believe, and from the point that Hal made, I agree with his point. I think that he's telling the truth here. Obviously, if the Pistons waited, I guess we could wait and see. I don't think it's something you want to test. But anyways, the point that's being made here is that the Pistons Jerami Grant's value is not going to be higher than it is right now for this reason. Yes, he may play better next season. Before he got hurt, he was in the middle of a little bit of an inefficient season. But his value still won't be higher next year for this point and this point only. Right now, he has a year and a half left on his contract before a team is forced to sign him. Now, another team may want to give him an extension when they trade for him. Who knows? But on his current contract, he has a year and a half left before they have to pay him. If the Pistons trade him, and it's going to be a contender that wants him, no, a bad team's not going to ask for him. It's all the contenders that want him because he's a great piece to have, like a third or fourth piece. He'll elevate that championship contender to legit championship level team. So those are the guys that will want him. They have half this season. If they trade him right now, they have half this season to try to get him meshed with the team, try to get things going and make a run this year. If things don't work out, they can't get the mesh in time. There's some chemistry issues that they just weren't able to work out. Okay, then you still have full next year to get you have the whole offseason, get your team together. Then they have the entirety of the next season to try and make it work with Jerami Grant and your team. Try to get everyone filled in together, chemistry going, and make another push for a title. Teams will be feeling more safe in doing that. And then also, to be honest, here's another point here. If they do trade for him now, and let's say it doesn't work out in this half of the season, they try to spend the offseason making it work. At the beginning of the next season, it's still not working. They could then flip him at the deadline because he's still going to be a hot commodity. He's going to have a good contract still, and he's going to be a player that contenders want to have on their team. So if it's not working out for them, they can even flip him again at next year's deadline. They have all those kind of options, and they feel much more secure in having him on the team. If you wait till next year, teams are now faced with this. He's going to be basically a rental because he's only going to be available for half the season. You may not be able to sign him back after the season. If you are interested in signing him back after the season, you'll be in a bidding war with everyone. Thirdly, if it doesn't work in that half the season, there is no extra season after that to try and make it work again. So literally, he is just a rental, and then you completely eliminate the option of possibly being able to move him again the next season, gain some assets if it doesn't work out again. So I think that point right there is an incredible point of why the Pistons should look to trade him right now. His value is not going to be higher than it is right now next year. I don't believe that. If he's playing better next year, I still don't think that his value will be higher than it is right now because next year he's going to be a riskier option to go. He is going to be a rental. He's only going to have half a season left on his contract. So a team is not going to be so willing to give up. We kind of saw this, and maybe not so much, but I've speculated about this. Maybe since he's played after that, maybe I'm wrong. I speculated at the time that's why the Pistons didn't get as much for Andre Drummond because he was operating. Teams were operating under the assumption that he only had half the season left because his contract was expiring. So that's why they got only 2 second-round picks. Now, maybe his value just wasn't that high because people just didn't think he was that good. But at the time, and I still kind of speculate that if he had a few more years under his contract, or at least another year under his contract, where teams weren't trying to, um, trade for a rental, that teams would have been more interested in Andre. And you see that across the league as well. There's other examples as well, but I just picked the recent Pistons one. When guys are not just a rental and they have more than a year left or more than half that season, teams are more willing to part with assets because they know they're not just, teams aren't going to be so willing to give up a big asset for a guy that's only going to be around for 2 months. It doesn't make much sense to do. It's very risky to do. If you're making that type of trade, you have to know for a fact that that trade is putting you over the top and you're going to win a championship. Outside of that, it's going to be it's very risky to do so. So I don't know if contenders are going to be willing to give us as much value next year as they're going to be willing to give up this year. And this year, I feel like a lot of contenders feel like it's wide open. You got Kyrie over there not playing for the Brooklyn Nets. We don't know if he's ever going to come back to the Brooklyn Nets. He's a weird dude. We don't know what the hell is going on with him. The entire East is wide open. The West, you got the Lakers in a funk. You got the Denver Nuggets, who are, as last time I checked, they weren't towards the top of the standings with Jokic, but Jamal Murray is out, so they're still open over there. You got the Warriors, who are heating up, but Clay hasn't returned yet. You don't know when Clay's going to return or how he's going to look when he returns. And even if he does return, I don't think the Warriors are as scary as they were like back in 2017, 18, 16, all those years. They would be scary for sure, and they may win the title, but they're not going to be like this juggernaut that people are just afraid and basically willing to forfeit years up until they stop. They're not going to be that. And outside of that, everywhere else is just open. There's no I think this is the first year in a while, and maybe even last year too, outside the Nets, after they got hurt. But for the entirety of a season, I don't know who you're going to pick to win a championship. It feels like it can come from any different direction. So teams are going to be more willing to try to make a push for this season. Okay, it really looks like anybody has a chance if you can get a player like Jerami Grant to add on to your squad. So for all those reasons, I feel like that is why the Pistons should capitalize on his value. I think his value is at the highest right now, and it won't be this type of value, even if he's playing better next season, for all the reasons I just listed. So for that reason, right now, even if the Pistons weren't expecting to get rid of Jerami Grant or weren't really like, oh, we have to move Jerami Grant. Maybe they want to keep Jerami Grant. Maybe they like Jerami Grant. I'm sure they do. Troy Weaver and him have a good relationship. But when opportunities like this arise for a team, especially when you have Cake for the reasons we listed in the first segment with him and Kay Cunningham, the questions there. Um, when all those kind of things arise, and a team is as bad as it is right now with the Pistons, and you have an opportunity like this with Jerami Grant to get pretty good value, I feel like you can get for him in a season like this for all the circumstances surrounding it. I feel like that's the kind of opportunity you have to pounce on, especially for where the Pistons are at right now as part of their restoration. That's where I stand with it. Those are the reasons why I would trade Jerami Grant this season. Again, like I said before the season, I was at the point where I didn't know if I wanted to get rid of him. I thought the Pistons were more likely to extend him. It was reported in the Athletic before the season that it was more likely that they would extend him than trade him. Things changed in a few months, and I feel like the circumstances have changed enough to where it makes the most sense for the Pistons to trade Jerami Grant, capitalize on his value, and move forward with the restoration. I really think that trading Jerami Grant could really do a good could really push this restoration forward, depending if they get a good deal and make the right move. Obviously, it depends on that, but I think that right move is out there somewhere for them. But when we come back, you guys have been asking me. I've had a lot of you guys ask me, "Koo, you've talked about the Jeremy Grant trade rumors. You've talked about possible trade packages that have been rumored about. But what are you looking for in a Jeremy Grant trade offer?" I'll tell you guys that in the final segment of today's podcast. But first, I got to tell you guys about some of our sponsors. First up, let me tell you guys a little bit about BetOnline AG. BetOnline has you covered all season. More props, odds, and lines than ever before as football season continues to march to the playoffs. By the way, go number 9. He just got a big win against the Cardinals. That's my quarterback, MVP, going to the Super Bowl. BetOnline remains your number one spot for all the sports action this season. Head to their new updated desktop or mobile website to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use our promo code Locked On to receive your bonus. From basketball, football, NHL, boxing, and UFC, right to your favorite Vegas casino games, don't wait to take advantage of all their amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. So again, head to their new updated desktop and mobile website to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit by using promo code Locked On. BetOnline, where the game starts. Then let me tell you about another one of our sponsors, your guys' favorite sponsor, Built Bar. This holiday season, grab the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar, or even better than a candy bar, Built Bar. Filled with so much holiday goodness, rich with decadent flavor, covered in chocolate, but amazingly low in calories, sugar, net carbs, and fat, and high in protein. You get the best of both worlds, delicious and healthy. There's so many flavors too. You have a hard time choosing between them. You have raspberry or mint brownie, cherry or double chocolate, cookies and cream or peanut butter brownie. Built Bar gives you that extra fuel you need to bust down those mall doors and battle all the holiday shoppers. Or if you're just standing in endless shopping lines, Built Bar can give you that extra something to keep you going. So throw one in your jacket or purse. You never know when you're going to need one. Because it's the season of peace and love, don't bring up your favorite Built Bar flavor at family parties. People are so passionate about their favorite flavor, they'll fight for it and things can get out of hand. So go ahead to built.com, use promo code LOCK15, you'll get 15% off your order. Again, head to built.com, use promo code LOCK15, and you'll get 15% off your order. Built Bar, the best tasting protein bar ever. I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. And again, if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button to the YouTube channel. We're very, very, very close to 1,000 subscribers. I think we could possibly hit it by the end of the week, but I think we're definitely going to hit it by the end of the year, which was our goal, which is really fun to see. But we need that last push to get there. Let's see it happen. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button to the channel. I'd really appreciate it. But like I said, we've spent the whole podcast talking about Jerami Grant and why it makes sense for the Pistons to trade him. Now, you guys are asking me, Koo, what would you accept for a Jerami Grant trade offer? What is it that would make you pull the trigger on trading Jerami Grant? So my answer is going to vary. It depends what kind of what team you're dealing with here. So since Jerami Grant is likely to be traded to a contender, if he is traded, he is very likely to go to a contender. He's the only non-contender that I can see him possibly going to, excuse me, is the Indiana Pacers. If they want to trade for him and then flip him again, maybe they trade for I don't know, maybe they trade Miles Turner for him. Miles Turner is who I want off the Pacers, but in a world like that, that's the only way I can see him not going to contender. And then the Pacers possibly think about flipping him or something. Once they get him, they feel like they could probably get more than more for Jerami Grant than Miles Turner possibly. Maybe something like that. That's the only way I can see him not going to contender. But outside of that, he's going to contender. So because of that, just picks ain't going to do it. Because a first round pick from a contender is going to be in the late 20s, uh, mid 20s, and that's not going to hold very much value. So I'd like a pick, but just picks ain't going to do it. That's not going to that won't be the main piece of the trade because your first round pick that you'll be offering me basically is going to be useless. I could get a steal there. I could get a gem and turn out to be a monster, but it's very unlikely and it's just not good value. So I'm not. That's not going to cut it. What I'm going to need is, depending on what team, I'm going to need a first round pick and an established young prospect. And or you could give me two young prospects and a worse pick, maybe like two young prospects and a second round pick, and that would make me pull the trigger on a Jerami Grant trade. If you offer me a first round pick and you're a contender, it's late in the draft, late in the first round, not holding too much value to me. I need another established young prospect. So if we want to go down possible guys we're thinking about here, the first one that jumps off my head. I don't even think this team would be interested in Jerami Grant, but just because this is the first team that pops off my head, I know them more. Let's say the Warriors want Jerami Grant. I'd be immediately asking for either James Wiseman or Kaminga. Simple as that. If you're not offering me one of those guys, I'm hanging up the phone. Don't even call me. I send them the voicemail each time. If it's not Kaminga or if it's not James Wiseman, who I'd rather have James Wiseman. If you're not offering one of those two guys with a pick attached, I don't want it. James Wiseman, possibly maybe not as much as a pick attached because he was the second overall pick. You may not be able to squeeze that out. But Kaminga, I definitely want pick attached, and then you can have Jerami Grant. And I also know that the Warriors are operating from. I have leverage over the Warriors because they don't really need those guys. They're trying to compete right now. They need Jerami Grant more than I do. So I'm not picking up the phone unless one of those guys on the table. So that's the kind of example I'm giving. The Lakers, they don't have nothing I want. THT. If I have to hear one more thing about THT, I'm going to lose it. THT is not this prized possession. He's not this prized young prospect. The only reason why he is because he's an LA Laker and they hype everybody for the Lakers, and he's playing with LeBron, and everyone wants LeBron to win. So they're going to overhype anyone possible to try to get LeBron a good player in return. And you already see LeBron even doing his own little marketing strategy for getting rid of THT. You see him on Twitter trying to hype up his highlights and stuff. It's honestly messed up, LeBron, that you're doing that. But THT, I'll tell you this much: the Pistons trade for THT as the Jerami Grant for THT. That may be the last straw. Not the last 10 years of losing. Nope. The constant bad draft picks. Nope. The potential trade of Blake Griffin that you could argue set the franchise back years. Nope. All those things. What was it? The rebel against who was the coach? Was it John Kuster with Rip Hamilton? All of them. Nope, that wasn't enough. All the stuff that has happened over the last 10 years, that wouldn't be enough. But if the Pistons trade Jerami Grant for THC, this hat you guys see that I'm wearing will be burnt, and that'll be the end of me. That will be the end. I'll peace out. THC is not worth Jerami Grant. There's no way in living hell they should do that. I don't care what anyone says from LA. Jerami Grant straight up for THC is stupid. And even if you add a first round pick, it's not gonna be that high of a first round pick. It's not worth it. You can get better offers for someone else. But those are the teams I immediately think of. The Hawks. The Hawks are a team I see are coming up very much so. I would take Okongwu and Cam Reddish for Jerami Grant. I would want both of them because and I might even ask for a pick with it. Maybe not a first round pick, but a second round pick, or maybe even a lottery protected first round pick, because both those guys are incredibly injury prone. And I don't think Cam Reddish is Cam Reddish. I would love to have Cam Reddish. He's an extremely intriguing prospect, but he's not. I don't think he himself, like based off what he done so far, is worthy of Jerami Grant type of stuff. I think like I said, he's incredibly intriguing. He's incredible. Uh, People would want to have him as a prospect on the team. Basically, what I'm saying, but I don't think he's proven so far in through 3 years that he himself is worthy, based on what he's done on the floor, worthy of Jerami Grant. And they're injury prone. Him and Cam Reddish, or him and Okongwu, have been incredibly injury prone. So I'm taking a major risk by taking them on and trading to Jerami Grant. So I'd want both of them and a second round pick for insurance. So that's another trade offer I'd do. I don't know about any other trade rumors that I've seen pop up, but that's what I'm looking at. If you're giving me a first round pick, it's a contender, so I need another established young prospect that I really like. Chicago Bulls. I've seen the Bulls name get floated around by some fans on Twitter. If the Bulls wanted to throw a first and Patrick Williams, I know Patrick Williams is out for the season, but he's an intriguing prospect and he's someone that Weaver really liked at the wing spot. I would consider that. it may not be the most amazing one, but I would consider that one before I even consider THD. I would consider Patrick Williams just coming back next year and using him. I think he's an incredible prospect. And Troy Weaver was a major fan of his. So I'd much rather take Patrick Williams, who's out for this season, and a first rather than THD. By the way, I see some of you guys who have been mentioning the Bulls throwing Kobe White out there. I have zero interest in Kobe White. I don't believe in Kobe White at all. I don't want him. I have no interest in him at all. So keep him away. I'll take Patrick Williams if he's on the table. That would make me consider it. But outside of that, the Philadelphia 76ers, we've seen his name pop up in Ben Simmons trades. Um, I'm still not a huge fan of Ben Simmons, but I've changed my tune a little bit. If the Pistons did trade Jerami Grant for Ben Simmons or try to get a package for Ben Simmons that included centering around Jerami Grant, I would be opposed to it. I wouldn't be too mad about it. At the beginning of the year, I was very much against it. I still would be very much against it if you're giving up a first round pick. That's not happening. But if you can get a package that includes Jerami Grant and they take it, um, I wouldn't be too mad at it. I'm not as opposed to it as the beginning of the year, but I still wouldn't like it. I'd just be like, okay with it. I'd just be like, okay, whatever. I guess you did it. That's cool. Um, outside of that, I don't know really any other team. I'm sure there's a bunch of. They said that there's dozens of teams calling the Pistons about Jerami Grant. So I'm not going to go through every single team and talk about it. But that gives you guys an idea of what I'm thinking about when I'm talking about trading for Jerami Grant. The Portland Trailblazers, that's another team I saw pop up. I'm not sure if the Trailblazers have anything I like over there as well. Um, but yeah, like I said, that gives you guys an idea of what I'm thinking about. And no, I saw some of you guys doing trade machines with Buddy Hield and Marvin Bagley. No, you're not trading Jerami Grant for that. Marvin Bagley has negative value. You should not be giving up anything of value for Marvin Bagley. Everyone knows they want to get rid of him. Everyone knows he wants out. You should not be giving up anything of true value for Marvin Bagley. If you're getting Marvin Bagley, it should be like a first, second round pick or Josh Jackson or something. That should be the trade right there. But that's all I've got for you guys today on today's episode. Let me know what you guys think about possibly trading Jerami Grant or what my asking price for it. Is it too high? Is it too low? Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below or over at Twitter at Kookie Hill. Again, I thank you guys for listening to the podcast every single day, making it your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button over on the YouTube channel. We're almost at 1,000 subscribers. Help us and be a part of the late push, the last push to 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year. I'd really appreciate it. And for your second listen of today, make sure you go check out Locked On Bets, your daily one-stop shop for all your gambling needs. Hosted by your boy Q with the expert analysis and insight from Lee Sterling. It's free and available on all your platforms. But yeah, thank you guys for listening to today's podcast. Let me know what you guys think about possibly trading Jerami Grant, possible trade machine things. You guys can tweet those over at me all the time. I'll respond to them at Kookie Hill over on Twitter. If you guys have some special trade machines, you guys want to know what I think about them, tweet them over at me. But yeah, until the next podcast, I'll see you guys later. The Pistons play again on Thursday against, fair enough, the Indiana Pacers, who possibly could be in the market for Jerami Grant if they want to swap over Miles Turner, which I'll take. But yeah, we have a game then. I'll see you guys on the next podcast. Peace out, everybody, and go Pistons.